Okay, well, this is a very exciting panel because it's the last panel in the event, and then we will have an opportunity to listen about what opportunities as well are there in the European innovation area for innovators. So I would like to invite to the stage Robbert Fischer. And Leena Sarvaranta. And Filip Granek. Yes, to begin with, Robbert, can you please very briefly describe what is the European Innovation Area and what does it mean for innovators in Poland?
It's a new initiative by the Commission. For the people that follow this, you know, you have the ERA activities. Lately, the European Innovation Council was added, and this is the next step in the family tree, which is the European Innovation Area. So it's all not yet totally filtered out, but it's in concept, and of course there's a whole political process behind it. What it means is that it's aimed at the innovators themselves, and it's aimed at letting innovators do what they're best at, innovating. So removing barriers, creating an equal playground, irrespective of where the innovators come from, and put things in place that they can freely move, freely act, and concentrate on the innovation. That's in very short, very vague, but very short.
Thank you. And Leena, from your experience working with large organizations like the Łukasiewicz Research Network in Poland, VTT in Finland, and those members of the club, so-called EARTO club, the European Association of Research and Technology Organizations, what does it take to make the European innovation area a success?
Well, it's all about collaboration, and that means that we have different actors involved, stakeholders, and not to build firewalls between different actors, but see the complementarities. And here, of course, if I look at from the lenses of Łukasiewicz and all the RTOs, research and technology organizations, we have a role to play, or we can take the role as orchestrators and mediators and helping to transfer ideas and technologies, and even helping startups to scale up their technologies. I think collaboration is the very key for the success.
Yes, and collaboration is an excellent way of introducing Filip. We would like to know, how do you feel about collaborating as an innovator in the European game, in the European landscape, and how do you see the European innovation area? Does it represent any opportunities for you?
Yes, so I think it's a great opportunity for me coming from Poland at this time of history of Europe to be participating in a whole European market. And in terms of accelerating our innovation, it helps a lot to have the capabilities to collaborate with both academic but also industrial partners across the Europe in frame of collaborating projects, but then often after initiating a collaboration project that is co-founded or founded by European Union, there is like a follow-up collaboration already after we become friends, after we become participants. So I strongly believe that the huge space and amount of talents and amount of different competencies also along the value chain of different innovations that we have in Europe, and that we are removing the barriers, removing the borders, and we can participate in this common market. This is a huge opportunity for young organizations like our innovative but still young, and I would say rather early stage than very mature company, not being limited to just local market and local collaborations, but very strongly potentially profiting from the best know-how and the best mechanisms that are available across the Europe.
Then I have another question for all of you, but I will continue with you, Filip, to answer first, and then in the backward order. What do you think are the roles of the key players, the key actors in this European landscape? And in particular, you can begin with what roles have you played in the past, and what role are you playing at the moment in this landscape?
Okay, so I can look from just one perspective. My perspective is looking from deep technology company, focus on innovative solutions that are globally competitive. So that's just as a kind of disclaimer, this is the angle that I'm looking from. And I see there is a lot of room for research and technology organizations and in supporting, in collaborating. And actually I have wonderful experiences working with Łukasiewicz Research Network in Poland, and in my previous life, before I started XTPL, I was working at Fraunhofer Institute in Germany for many years, and I've learned the best practices of how such a research organization can actually translate to improving competitiveness of some of the European players so that they globally can be very active. So what are the roles of companies like ours? We need to be aggressive, we need to be the risk takers, we need to form alliances with research organizations to support our developments, and we need to struggle, or we need to work hard to work on partnerships with established big industrial players and help them innovate. So that's our work, and I think the European programs, the European funding makes these pieces of puzzles glued together more efficiently, more seamlessly, and I think we are also, at least in deep technology area, researchers, they are mobile people who profited also from the mobility on the European level, which makes these collaborations even easier because that's part of our mindset, this international trust and collaborative approach.
Okay, so Leena, you have been playing several roles as well as part of your activities before at VTT. So, and you know as well many key players. Can you shed some light on who, in your opinion, are the key players and what are the roles?
Well, if I continue from the deep tech, because it's one of my favorite topics, and you are like Formula One business in the sense that to be a star and get the chances to win, you need a competent team around it. It's team play, and I think RTOs can offer part of that team in the sense that we have the technological memory, and we can offer different types of skills to the game. And one of the great potential which the Commission and Member States together are working on this broader European innovation agenda is that they have realized the crucial role of the research and technology infrastructures that many RTOs are hosting, and this is actually about risk sharing with this deep tech Formula One winners in future, and that's a role which I think the whole RTO community can put into the successful implementation of the ideas coming from the, well, I don't know, it comes from everywhere, but Commission and Member States are working on it at the moment.
And Robbert, as former president of Knowledge for Innovation, you have been playing a pivotal role as well in positioning the European innovation area concept and discussing with Commissioner Gabriel and with the key players in the European Parliament. Can you share with us what are the main roles of those players in government as well as industry in this game?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, we heard the innovative companies, the large industry, the RTOs, but effectively the entire ecosystem has to be really tuned to the change you want to make. And it includes, of course, universities, but it also includes the regulators, the policymakers. They have to be committed and work on this jointly. And there has to be an interaction, like you're the innovator, and there has to be an interaction with the policymaker to understand what are your barriers. And so it needs to engage really all the players in the chain to come to the result that you want. Because I mean, one of the things that the innovation area tries to address is the innovation gap. I mean, it's not a very popular word, it's also not a very nice word actually, but it exists, and it exists at a very big scale. I think very few people realize that the economic indicators look much better than the innovation indicators. So the gaps between different regions in Europe in innovation terms are huge. And it's not going to change by itself. So you need to collaborate. You need to have all the actors in the chain at EU level, at national level, at regional level, to collaborate and work towards this common goal, which gives the innovator here in Poland the same chance as in Finland, as in Holland, as in Ireland, etc. So it effectively really requires all the actors. And sometimes the policy part seems very far away from many people's day-to-day reality, but they're actually screaming for input from people who are really in the business, who are really doing it, understanding it. And I think that's a big step to make, that people are not just running their business, which is their main concern, but also see mechanisms and channels to give input to this process and make it work jointly with all the other players.
Yeah, and now talking about gaps, so the innovation gap, and it's very close to the next question, which is about barriers and needs. So I would like to go with you first again, Filip. What do you think are the main barriers that you have, for example, for future collaborations that you have thought, and then what are the main needs that you have perhaps in terms of infrastructure as well, and networks and contacts?
Yeah, so I think the access to infrastructure, like you said, to very advanced, and I'm talking about research infrastructure. If you're talking about Formula One racing, you have to play with the best toys, to be competitive globally, because that if you're not competitive globally, like who cares then in terms of deep technology? So I think this is where the support for RTOs, so that they can offer access to this infrastructure. And we actually are customer to some of this RTO infrastructure in Wrocław, in our city, but also in some international collaborations. This is great. This is giving us a good playground to start with. And then always young companies will always scream for money. That's our part of our job. One of our first instinct, give us more funding. But I'm saying that in a reasonable way, and I understand that there is always going to be competition, and whatever the amount that you will invest into innovation, there will be always more needs potentially than you can service. So yes, let's not forget about funding, but let's be also open to competition for this funding. And this is a European level of competition, so it's a more challenging than local competition. You have to compete with the best guys and ladies in the whole European universe, which is sometimes frustrating. You're not always going to be successful, but if you play the game, if you learn from your mistakes, then it's going to make you stronger at the end of the day. So I think keep up. If what are the barriers? I think they are becoming smaller and smaller. I would like this RTO infrastructure to be still available. Of course, continue supporting collaborative projects and also support direct funding for young and high-risk, long-term companies who will not give you an overnight success. But if we don't play long game as Europe, we are going to be left behind.
And Leena, let's merge, because of time, let's merge the barriers question. You can comment briefly, but then what are the opportunities that you see? And Robbert, the same. Let's merge barriers and opportunities. But Leena, you go first, and then we finish with you, Filip, with the opportunities at the end.
Well, from RTO point of view, I think the opportunity could be if at European level we come up to a good strategic thinking of the investments, how we channel in a new way the available funds, and I think opportunities are there, but it's not easy. We need to start understanding the regulation and those barriers and come across them somehow. But I think that is on its way, but we need to be involved in that discussion as well.
And Robbert, you can also talk about the opportunities, but also focus a bit more on opportunities for Poland.
Yeah, I mean, the barriers are the ones mentioned. I mean, the innovation area will focus on cohesion, will focus on access to finance, removing the barriers through better conditions, focus on deep tech. So all these things were mentioned, and that's what it will concentrate on. But the real barrier, the real problem that exists is this disparity between different regions in Europe in terms of innovation capacity. Because what happens is that it's a brain drain because people will go where the opportunities are. So if you want to have a cohesive, nicely divided of spread innovation landscape, you need to solve that first. Now comes the opportunity. It's very recent, but the Commission has decided with the European Parliament to allocate about 3 billion euros in the next half year to a year to focus specifically on reducing, closing is a bit too ambitious, but reducing that innovation gap. So I think there will be a lot of opportunity for Poland to be alert and use that money to pitch the issues that are most urgent.
And what opportunities you see for yourself, and what would you tell other Polish innovators in terms of opportunities that are out there?
Yeah, I think generally for Poland, one of our key opportunities that deep technology innovations, that we have huge pool of very talented researchers and scientists, and many of them are overcoming this, let's say, brain drain process that they've spent many years abroad, and this enriched them. They made them grow collaboration networks, and then they decided to come back. This is a huge human capital that we can profit from, and they are hungry for success, ready to to push. So this is one of the opportunities that over the last years, with the connection to some of the European partners, helps a lot. Access to funding. Like our company is profiting from extra funding for our R&D work on the European level, which is excellent support. But personally, I see even more important is that the fact that the funding comes together with an added value of collaborations. And again, building value with along the value chain, end user, innovator, and different competencies that are built together. This accelerates your development. And I think one thing that is not always very strongly discussed is that Europe has so many flavors, and there is no one way of successfully doing business. China is successful differently than US in Silicon Valley. So there is no reason why Europe has to be very uniform in terms of how we do the success. So if we can take advantage of these different flavors and attitudes and mindsets, I think we are richer and we'll be more successful at the end.
Well, we began the whole Impact event with a keynote from Harari, where the key message as well was that we are entering a new era. And in this new era, there is no room for business as usual. There are new changes that we're going to see, so there will be new ways of co-creating opportunities for internationalization, working together, and the values of solidarity were also mentioned. Security was a key point in several of the keynotes. So what are your key last messages, Leena and Robbert, regarding this issue of the new era, and what role can Poland play in this new era?
I think it's obvious that Poland has a role, and I think it's also a responsibility because there is so much potential here. And the better Poland does, the better Europe does, and the better my Finland does. So it's a common effort, and we have no other choice than to succeed.
Robbert.
Yeah, I mean, I can fully concur with you. I mean, the opportunities are enormous, and they're also enormous because there's a backlag. So you have to first catch up and accelerate. But if you capture the momentum, it can be very exciting. And to face we live in changing times. I mean, all the transitions, all the phase we have to go through after pandemic with a war going on. The challenges are enormous, and we can only do this by getting everybody on an equal playing ground and working together and moving it forward. I think Poland, especially in the eastern region, eastern parts of Europe, has a really pivotal role to play there.
Well, I would like to thank you all for your time and for all your contributions. I think that there are plenty of opportunities, not only for Polish innovators in general, but for RTOs, as you mentioned, Leena, like Łukasiewicz Research Network, for universities as well, to join this. We just finished a workshop a moment ago where we were discussing the partnerships, and we were discussing other instruments that are also complementary to many initiatives that were discussed today. And I would like to ask the members of the room to thank the panelists for all their contributions. Thank you very much.